to this place of lots of things that happen besides Sunday mornings. I am Dinah Haig, and I welcome you to First Congregational Church of Frankfort. And so that you are aware, we are live streaming this presentation tonight. So greetings to everyone online who is joining us, or afterward when you may be joining us. It happened a couple years ago now that Dr. Phil DeLoria presented an evening somewhat like this here, and it was thought to be pretty nice and lovely. So when Ellie asked if we could do this here, I thought, just a wonderful thing to do on an August evening. So I welcome all of you, and I most especially welcome Ellie Harold, who will lead us this evening. So Ellie.
Great. Thank you, Dinah. I'm so grateful that we have this space, and because we're just right on the other corner, it made it really easy to set up. But also, I've always just admired this church so much, and I'm just grateful that when there was no hesitation. Of course, come and be with us. So I'm here this evening to bring you a bunch of different things. It's like I feel like I'm crawling out of my hole, where I work on this project pretty much endlessly. For the last 9 months or so, I've been working tirelessly with Carol Bobaltz, who's sitting back there. And so in a minute, I'm going to just have Carol stand up. So anyway, we've been working on this very important and precious to me volume, which is the exhibition catalog for Birds Fly In, A Human Refuge, which is going to launch for the second time in a real museum at the Dennis Museum in Traverse City, starting on September 1st, and we'll be there for 4 months. And an estimated 10,000 visitors are expected, COVID permitting. But I'm going for it. Last year we were at the Oliver Arts Center. We had 1,500 visits in 5 weeks, mid-pandemic. We broke all their attendance records. So I believe this project has heart and soul and the desire and the power to fly not just to Traverse City, but to points beyond. And I see this book, which we are offering tonight to you as a fundraising benefit for Abba House, as an ambassador to other parts of the country and to the world. Because I believe that once people begin to read this book and read the essays that have been generously contributed, see the art, read the poetry, people are going to want this out there. So anyway, I'm going to be waving this around a lot tonight. I'm very glad that you're here. I know people were texting me all day saying, "Oh, it's tonight? I thought it was tomorrow night." I know that summer is precious time, and time that you've probably taken away from your families, taken away from the beautiful day, to come in and sort of be with an experience that is challenging, to be in awareness of a problem, of the problems that we face in the world. It's much easier to escape, and it's a wonder that more of us haven't, tried to escape. Maybe we do. But I'm of the belief that our awareness of the cages that we're in really helps us move beyond them. And so it's in that spirit that we've brought some elements from Birds Fly In, A Human Refuge, so that you can experience a little taste. But let me just ask first, how many people were at the Oliver Arts Center last year? Just so I get an idea. So a good number of you had the experience. For those of you who weren't a part of it, the project is migration-inspired, avian-themed. You see birds all around. These banners, these colorful banners, were part of the exhibit at the Oliver Arts Center, and they will be going to the Dennis Museum, but they will also have Spanish translation as part of the displays. So we have, over the last year, expanded the exhibit to include Spanish language so that we can invite people who may have had a migration experience to witness, be able to see how we witness their experience and maybe get some feedback about how the project can grow. Anyway, like I said, I crawl out of my little hole to share this with you tonight, and I'm just very grateful because I think that your heart and soul, people who came from the exhibit last year, would just come to my studio, like come to the garage door, if you've been there, and just kind of stand there and weep. And the two words that people used most often was moving and powerful. Moving and powerful. Birds Fly In was conceived in gridlock traffic in Atlanta, Georgia, sitting there in a traffic jam. And something said to me, there's got to be a way out of this rancorous fighting amongst ourselves and with the world. And it occurred to me in those moments of sitting in the traffic that these birds that had appeared on my canvas after the November 2016 election, that these birds wanted to be part of a healing process, of creating a better world. And they had arrived on my art canvas as I came to understand them, as intuitive messengers of hope and healing. And I believe to this day that that's exactly what they are, and that the birds, in the form of the paintings that are a part of the exhibit, have attracted many different people, many different collaborators to be part of the exhibit, and it's part of the creation process. It started with a problem, the problem and the rhetoric about migration, about people coming across our border. I was passionate about this because I had just begun going to Mexico, and I actually was in Mexico during the November 2016 election. And I knew, that the rhetoric I was hearing wasn't true, that these were warm people, these were open, friendly people. These were not drug dealers and rapists, not the people I met. I'm sure there are bad people everywhere. But my experience was generally that this was so much warmth and so much beauty. I happen to love textiles, and it's too warm for me to wear this. But I think about this huipil that is all the stitching is by hand, and by women mostly down. I think this comes from Chiapas, Mexico, which is down near the Guatemalan border. And so when I think about and see images of people crossing, crossing Mexico, traveling, 1,000 more miles. It could be the woman who stitched this huipil, who, when she left, just had, a boot like this on. So we have shoes as part of the exhibit, and the shoes were collected at Abba House, and that's who we're using funds from the sale of the catalog to support the good work that they are doing. Celaya, Mexico is located about halfway between the southern Mexico border and the northern Mexico border. So migrant asylum seekers have to go through Celaya in order to get to the US border. And as you'll see in one of the videos we're going to show this evening, the people who arrive there, they've been on foot for about 1,500 miles. Some of them have been riding the Beast, and the Beast is the train that people climb on top of in order to get, relief from walking. But the Beast is very dangerous, and people fall off the train. And one of the things that Abba House does is it not only receives migrant asylum seekers who are just exhausted, and it gives them 3 days of shelter, room, board, and then it provides them with shoes and backpacks and other necessities that they can take with them on their journey. The shoes that you see here were the shoes that were discarded. by the asylum seekers who received new pairs of shoes from Abba House. The other thing that Abba House does is that when somebody falls off the train and has a limb amputated, they help them rehabilitate. So they also are a care facility for amputee asylum seekers. And so it's a very, as you'll see, they're doing a great job of delivering humanitarian aid where it's most needed. I'm happy to be able to help in any way. But I think, for me, Birds Fly In is not just simply about the problem, because you can say, well, there's this problem and that problem. There's COVID, there's Afghanistan. The world is one big problem right now, it seems. And, if you read the news or you look at Facebook, you know that you're expected to react to everything. Your emoji, do you like it? Are you angry about it? Are you sad? We're always, it seems like we're just caught up in one reaction after another. And that's not what Birds Fly In, a human refuge is all about. It's about a time out from reaction. It's about time out to reflect and turn within. I do have my background as a unity minister. And one of the things I learned was that we have a tremendous resource within us, which is our intuitive connection with something greater than ourselves. And we hardly ever use it. We're going, I don't know. I don't know what to do about this. I don't know. But we do know. If we take the time to sit still and turn within, we have many answers. Many, many answers within us. And that's our job as human beings, I think, which is to create a greater good in the world, not to react. I love that the letters are the same. React, create, same letters. Move them around. I think we're here to create a greater good, and that we have that capacity if we will take the time and space. So this idea of sanctuary, which often is something that happens in a church, and churches sometimes are challenging places if you feel that religion no longer serves you in a way that it once did. So you can come to Birds Fly In and find a secular sanctuary. So a place where no one's going to tell you what you should think or do, but it's just going to give you a space. And that space is filled with the music that you were listening to as you came in this evening. And that's the music of David Mendoza, who's a young violinist, composer, who I commissioned to create an hour of music with that purpose in mind, that people would come in, sit down, and look at my paintings and listen to this music. The paintings were all created while listening to his music. All the paintings that are on the inside of the refuge structure were all created just intuitively, without a plan in mind, listening to the music and letting the brush move where it will. And so I know the power of that, that you can create using intuition only. You have to be a little fearless and not worry about making mistakes or, because I screw up a lot. But great beauty comes through, the mistakes. And I believe that we're not expected to be perfect, but I think we are invited to be more expressive of the good that's in us than we often are. Because we're so busy reacting, putting the emojis, liking, not liking, judging. So Birds Fly In, here it is. It's a timeout. The words that came to my mind were that I wanted people to come in and look slowly and listen deeply. And so I invited, as part of this process, a group of poets who had been meeting. Rue and Greta and Camille and Sharon are here to represent a group of poets who were willing to come and engage with one or two paintings and the music and let themselves intuitively write, whatever they felt called to write. So what you're going to hear later on is some poetry written by these poets, and then some of them translated by Marguerite Coteau, who is, I'm so grateful, one of the many birds who showed up to support this process. You know, David was a main collaborator. How did that happen, that I could find somebody as talented as he is, as soulful as he is, who also saw birds, you know, in his mind as he played violin? Then there was that moment when I was playing the music at our home with Will Schley and his wife Beth Marcotte. They just came over for dinner. I didn't know them very well. They were talking about music, and so I said, oh, you know, I've commissioned this album of music. You want to hear it? And so I explained to Will afterwards what the project was all about. And, you know, he connected with it. He became the architect-designer of the refuge structure. I was already married to Rue, you know, and that was handy because he's been really helpful. But many collaborators have come together as part of this project. But right in this moment, I would like to just ask Carol to stand your masked face. This is Carol Bobaltz. Carol came to my art retreat in San Miguel de Allende and offered her help to create, well, first of all, the CD, which didn't really work out, and the second CD that didn't work out, but this beautiful book that I've had the privilege of putting in the hands of, you know, a number of people now, and the thing they say is, it's so beautiful. There's a lot of beauty in Birds Fly In. It really touches me because my soul hungers for beauty, you know, in a world that is a mess sometimes. You know, the soul just hungers and thirsts for beauty. And this book contains beauty. So I'm very grateful to you, Carol, for everything that you gave.
It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure working with you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Just so good. So, I'm going to just read this. Yesterday, 2 people sent me the same meditation from Richard Rohr. Some of you probably are aware of his daily meditations. I'm just going to read this because it was just so perfect. When we look at art, we're usually quick to judge its value according to our own preferences based on style, color, size, location, and even country of origin. However, there is another invitation, one that goes beyond our likes and dislikes. And that is to simply behold it. And that's one of the invitations of Birds Fly In, is just sit there, see what happens. Many of the apparitions in the Bible begin with behold, usually uttered as a command, an invitation, or perhaps a call to a different style of attention. In a sense, it is a giveaway that in fact we can and need to switch gears once in a while to be ready to perceive what is about to come at us. When I've sent people into the woods on a retreat, I learned from wilderness guide Bill Plotkin to ask them to draw a symbolic line in the sand and to truly expect things on the other side to show themselves as special, invitational, or even a kind of manifestation. We could do the same with time spent gazing at a painting. Believe it or not, it always works somehow. Oh, gazing at a painting, a sculpture, or immersed in poetry or music. Believe it or not, it always works somehow. On the other side of that log, or line in the sand, or piece of art, we start beholding. Someone who is truly beholding is silenced with the utter gratuity of a thing. We let it give us a leap of joy in the heart and in the eye. Once we decide to behold, we are available for awe and wonder, to be present to what is, without the filter of our preferences or the false ledger of judging things as important or not important. A much broader, much deeper, and much wider field of perception opens up, becoming an alternative way of knowing and enjoying. The soul sees soul everywhere else too. Deep calls unto deep. Center knows center, and this is called love. Beholding happens when we stop trying to hold and allow ourselves to be held by the other. We are completely enchanted by something outside and beyond ourselves. Maybe we should speak of beholding, because in that moment we are being held more than really holding, explaining, or understanding anything by ourselves. We feel ourselves being addressed more than addressing something else. This radically changes our situation and perspective. I invite you to behold something today. Allow your beholding to move the work of art beyond its mere relative truth and to reveal its inherent dignity as it is, without your interference or your labels. And it becomes an epiphany, and the walls of your world begin to expand. So, with that in mind, I'm going to ask you to behold 3 short videos. The first one will give you some insight into Abba House and the work that they do, and introduce you to Pastor Ignacio, who is the founder, creator of Abba House and continues to administrate it day to day. The second one is a performance piece. You'll see David Mendoza and me doing live painting performance in San Miguel de Allende. And so you'll get a flavor for his music, and you'll see how I create the painting just as a intuitive dance with the music. And then the third video was created by Diane Frederick, who is our videographer right there. And she put together First Flight based on the exhibit at the Oliver Arts Center. So if you weren't there, or if you want to just have a little refreshment, you'll get to see First Flight. Then we'll have some readings from our poets after a reading from his essay and the book from Dr. Phil Deloria. So enjoy the and partake. Do we want to turn the lights down?
Yeah, Sorry, technical problem.
Okay. Diana, how do we?
I can turn those off, but
We'll just leave.
¿Te duele? Cuando toco, sí. Lo hago porque me gusta y porque es un sector o un grupo muy vulnerable.
Esto me voló también un poco.
La uña.
¿Usted es pastor?
Sí. Sí, yo soy pastor de una iglesia cristiana. Y atendemos a las personas migrantes de Centroamérica y defendemos un tanto sus derechos como personas. ¿Cuántos días caminaste?
Pues he caminado varios días.
dificultades que se encuentran los migrantes por su tránsito por México es desde robos, desde golpes, accidentes, desde caminatas muy prolongadas. Tuve un hermano que migró, lo secuestraron, no recuerdo la cantidad que pidieron de rescate. La persona que le estaba ayudando en Estados Unidos pagó el rescate y bueno, llegó al lugar, pero yo sé lo que es ver una madre angustiada y ver todo eso, ¿no? Y pasando eso. Celaya es un paso obligatorio de migrantes. Celaya, aquí es donde hace cruce las vías y toman la ruta, la que va hacia las fronteras. Aquí Celaya siempre hay presencia de migrantes. Y dentro de todo eso, bueno, se empezó a dar lo que es hoy ABA. Rentamos una casa, hubo un proyecto que nos pudo ayudar a amueblar lo necesario para poderles ofrecer alimento, hospedaje, y de ahí fuimos armando lo que hoy es ABA, desde el voluntariado, lo poco, lo mucho del voluntariado, para brindarles un mejor apoyo o ayuda al migrante desde una situación psicológica, médica y legal. Empezamos a mirar la necesidad y dentro del contexto que yo tengo como un pastor cristiano, me di cuenta que parte de nuestro libro, de la Biblia que yo leo, Dios se preocupa mucho por el migrante. Les ayudamos a que estén 3 días con nosotros, que pernoten, descansen, coman. Les otorgamos un poco de ropa, calzado cuando tenemos.
Sí, uno y este de aquí.
Esto es una bala,
Es el plomo.
es el plomo de la bala. Yo
Eso entra poco.
yo no conozco qué calibre sea.
380.
¿380? Ok. O sea, entró la bala aquí.
Sí.
¿Y ahorita por dónde la sacaron? Pues esto es un milagro, ¿eh?
¿Cómo se pasó? ¿Qué pasó?
En Honduras.
¿En un tiempo fue?
Los
O sea, tú
mareros.
puedes pedir asilo. Nosotros podemos hacer un caso, abrir un caso y ir ante Comar para decirle que tú fuiste víctima. Pues tenemos los elementos. Víctima, y que si tú regresas a Honduras, pues te va a volver a suceder lo mismo. O sea, ella no puede regresar. Entonces tú eres candidato a tener asilo en México.
El gobierno los tiene por no hay trabajo, entonces no podemos, por eso emigramos para estos lados.
¿Y es peligroso allá?
Oh sí, es demasiado peligroso.
Hola, díganle a la cámara. Hola, díganle.
You can turn me on. So there is more to that video, and I can, for anyone who's interested, supply you with the links to the full-length experience. I will say that the film was made by a woman named Judy Jackson, who's from Ontario, and she was very generous. And I just wrote to her and I said, you've made this. Can I show this? And she said, whatever you want. And so she's one of the beautiful birds who has shared her creativity in support of our effort here and also Abba House. So next year, Ellie and David. So this was a concert where I introduced to the audience in San Miguel the Birds Fly In project and showed an animated video that Will had created for demonstrating what the refuge structure would look like. So actually, Birds Fly In first was introduced to an audience of North Americans in San Miguel, Mexico. And it was videoed by Fair Moss, who was a friend of David's, who has become a very close friend, and Diane has had collaboration with her as far as getting footage, and it's just been lots of cross-cultural juice. So while Rue is moving the screen out of the way.
I'm going to take that earring off. That's next week.
Oh, okay.
I'm curious why you called it birds fly in rather than birds fly out.
Because birds flew into my canvas. Like intuition, good ideas, insinuate themselves in our mind. So it's this idea that the birds of the air are like in ideas flying in. So, and there's so many layers to the metaphors in this exhibit, but there are real people who have been very important collaborators. And we formed a nonprofit organization about a year and a half ago, and I'm one of we have 4 members. Me, Rue, Julie Avery. Where are you, Julie? Here's Julie. And Julie is retired curator from MSU Museum. That's it. Great. and Julie has been a great help to me. And just bouncing ideas on how do museums work, all of that kind of thing. She's been very helpful. And so our other board member is Peggy Burns. Peggy, would you indicate there? Peggy lives across the street and kind of got lassoed in to conversations on the front porch about a project like this, and her great understanding of how the world works and how people come together to contribute and support organizations that are trying to do creative things in the world. So I appreciate Peggy's presence on our very young board of directors. Peggy, as you know, probably is married to Phil. Phil also lives across the street. Phil wears so many hats, and for Birds Fly In, he was like a heavy lifter. He came and helped kind of move the chain link fence into place, and then he was the monofilament line tire. He got up on the ladder and was, tying all those very fine lines. But then, when all the dirty work was done, I called on him because, he's a heavy. He's like teaches at Harvard, and I wanted this book to have some gravitas. And I forgot the other hat that he wears often is on the porch playing music. So, with Rue and with others. So I know him and all these other things, but I didn't know whether it would be okay to call upon him. But he's very generously wrote a very thoughtful and provocative perspective on the project. And so I want to introduce and invite Phil to come up and read to us from Birds Fly In, the catalog. Thank you. Oop, crunch, crunch, crunch. Okay.
Dinah has reminded me about the dynamics of microphones and people hearing. Hi, everybody.
We need to switch
I don't know. Is it on? No. Because what we usually do in this thing as musicians is we hit the thing. Boom, boom, boom. Is this on? Or we unplug it and we plug it in again. All right. I know. Here we go. Yes? Better? Yes? Can you hear it? No? I think we can hear it now. Okay, here we are, the epitome of suaveness. So I'm just going to jump in and read the beginning and then the last little bit at the end. Wander through a large airport or a big glassy museum or maybe a sports arena. If you're paying attention, you'll see the birds. Somehow they fly in, through doors and cracks across the borders of concrete and steel. Outside are the walls, the fences, the predators and extortionists, the danger. Inside are to be found warmth, food, security. The birds chirp and sing as birds are wont to do, providing a soundtrack for the refuge they've created, the new homes they've made for themselves. The sounds are simultaneously language and music, an avian poetry that takes one back to ancient times when humans first became human. What was it to become human? Perhaps being human came about with the advent of language, visible to us only in the dim musical mists of onomatopoeia, original, archaic words formed cunningly from mimicry of the sounds of the world. The rush of the river became the word for river. The call of a bird became the word for bird. The roar of a predator became its name and the name of the sound it made. As the critic Walter Benjamin once observed, all we have left of those generative moments are fragments, transformed memories of primal sound words. Chirp, one contemporary language's word for a bird sound, actually sounds something like the musical language of a bird. In Danish, the word is pip. In Hawaiian, kio. With such words, we are cast back to the primordial. Perhaps becoming human had something to do with the valuing of a distinction between difference and sameness. Chimpanzees, not quite human, but sometimes a model, useful for thinking about that ancient moment. Chimpanzees will kill a chimpanzee not of their own troop. Social sameness for the chimp is everything. Social difference requires hostility and destruction. Humans, at that moment when they became human, began to think otherwise. They came to understand that the creature walking out of the desert, walking your way, the one that looked like you, might be like you. It might be worth waiting a bit before you loosed your arrow. And sure enough, fish could be swapped for nuts, meat traded for seeds. Over time, wariness might even give way to trust. Though it was never easy, human difference gave new life to the flatline stasis of primal sameness. Difference made us creative, imaginative, better. To get there, though, we had to cross some lines. It is a sad fact that since those early moments, human beings have had to fight to maintain their humanity, to remember the lesson taught by difference. Those who look mostly like us, those who define safety and the good life in some slightly unfamiliar way, we struggle to recognize that those creatures are in fact human beings. Why humans fail so badly at this quintessentially human enterprise is part of the mystery of being human. One thing we know for sure, when humans dehumanize one another, when we give up on that ancient insight, we lose some part of our own humanity. Dehumanizing cuts both ways. From the first murder, to the first war, to the first empire, to the first genocide, to the present day, humans have gone about the business of humanizing and dehumanizing. And all that time, birds have continued to sing and to soar, to migrate continental flyways, to nest and seek shelter, to speak their own languages, to look down upon us from the sky. They fly over our walls and our fences, across our borders, past watchtowers, under barbed wire, and through windows and doors. They look down on patrols and officers. They see humans carrying black painted plastic jugs of water and cheap backpacks filled with cans of tuna, dying in the desert, slowly giving up the hope that they might walk out of their death march and find another human being, wary but willing. And so thinking about the cage, the structure, as a space for a timeout, right, as Ellie said, for thinking, for contemplation of nests, of prisons, of barriers, of transcendence, of freedom, and of course, of art. And the essay this way. I did not need to go outdoors to take the air, wrote Henry David Thoreau of his own aesthetic experiment in freedom, commenced, he said, on the 4th of July, 1845, in a nesty little cabin at Walden Pond. I did not need to go outside to take the air, for the atmosphere within had lost none of its freshness. It was not so much within doors as behind a door where I sat, even in the rainiest weather. The Harivansa says, an abode without birds is like a meat without seasoning. Such was not my abode, for I found myself suddenly neighbor to the birds, not by having imprisoned one, but having caged myself near them. And so again, the birds fly in, flashing color, bold patterned silhouette, slashing cages and freedom, musical language, chirp, pip, keel, just as they've been flying in for millennia since they stopped being dinosaurs, reminding us not only of their own flight, but also that of the human.
Okay. This mic is working? Okay, I'm trying it. Test, 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 test. Now I'm going to invite our our logistics engineer to share with us. Thank you, Phil, for coming up and using the microphone. And for writing such a wonderful essay. I mean, really, if I can say something, just to plug the book again, it really is meaty. It has substance to it. It has 4 or 5 essays. Phil's is the longest and has the most gravitas. And is most interesting. Well, it's not the most interesting. They're all interesting. So this is not just a picture book. It's got poetry, it's got art, and it has interesting essays. So now I'm going to invite my husband, Rue Davison, to come up and read his poem, Murmurations.
Okay. I've never used one of these before. It doesn't fit my ear very well. Okay. Can you hear me clearly? Okay. So I'm going to read my poem Murmurations. One of the other essays that's in this book is by Jim Robbins about birds. And so I'm just going to read a couple of paragraphs from his essay because I think it sets the scene for the poem Murmurations. So Jim says, among the things I learned from my own interpretation of birds is how very little we know about the world we live in. Despite centuries of research, for example, many things about birds are still mysteries well beyond our understanding. Physicists are still trying to interpret the spectacle of murmurations, a gathering of many thousands of birds in flocks that swoop and dive across the sky in unison, in an exquisite aerial ballet, without colliding or crashing. How they do this is yet another bird mystery. Murmurations. Birds fly up and over the appearance of things, high up, high over, or just up, just over, a bit further, higher, flyer, flight, fleet, seeking. Above it all, above board, in plain view. New perspectives, unclear directives. You can see a long way, but not details, decals, labels, lies. Stables of ideas, collections of fears, wheels turning gears, out of step with my peers, an advantage of tears, a murder of crows, heaven knows. Massive murmurations, nations, stations, stops on the way. A better way, way down deep, vertiginously steep. Who's to say? A flock of sheep, a wolf in sheep's clothing, the devil you think you know. Don't go, don't stay, don't play that game. What's in a name? Who's to blame? It's all the same, tame, a guttering flame, burning bright, an idea that's right. Let's fight, take fright, take flight. Take one, it's free, on me, on you, a foot on the other shoe. Stick to each other like glue, argue until we're blue, in your face, like mace. It stings, takes wings, brings new things. Hope, like rope. Tie me up, tie me down, a tool in the hands of a fool used as a tool. A stool, sit for a moment, I'll put on the kettle, test your fettle. 1 sugar, any more and I'll freeze. I only say I want to please. Not evil enough, need more stuff, fit for a king for a day, starring in a play, a comedy, a tragedy, a travesty. Getting closer now, closer to the edge, the thin end of the wedge, opening up, a crack in the armor, a crack in the shell. Hope all's well, but I can't tell. A death knell, a gateway to hell, or heaven's gate. I hope I'm not late, meet my fate, don't look away, live another day, aging. And all because 2 people met and fell in love. New directions, new intersections, a source of joy. When the dam burst, when the walls came tumbling down, when the scales fell from our eyes, when the light shone forth, when doves cried, when angels wept, dancing on the head of the pin. It hurt their feet. The theory seemed neat, but broke under the burden of joy, the labor of love. It fit like a glove, but too tight, not quite right, not too wrong. We can be strong. Come along, see for yourself. Pick yourself up, man overboard, man over the top. Maybe it's time to stop. I don't know how to solve this problem. Let's sit and watch birds fly in.
So I want to introduce 2 people. First, I'm going to introduce Marguerite Coteau. Don't sit down yet. Marguerite's the bird who appeared when we needed translation of the exhibit, and Marguerite appeared at the request of, Jason Dake, who's the curator, one of the curators at the Denos Museum, suggested that Marguerite might want to participate in this project, and Marguerite very generously agreed to do so. So I'm not going to let her say anything right now, but she's going to, after several of the poems are, we have 3 people reading poems, and the second poem of each other poet is going to be translated by Marguerite into and read in Spanish for you. okay? So when she pops up, she's going to be speaking Spanish. And first of all, I'd like to welcome Sharon McMcauley, who's going to read her two poems. And these poems, as I said, were created looking at the art and listening to David's music.
I should be used to this after wearing masks for over a year, hooking something over my ears. I have never written poetry before that belonged as much with music and art. The life of this poem in particular can't really stand alone. And so I would like to ask you to imagine going into, if you've been at Rue and Ellie's home, into their living room, sitting there alone in front of, well, actually surrounded by Ellie's art, but focusing in on one painting, and then music comes up that seems to be all around you and coming from the walls and the ceiling, so that as you gaze at this painting, the music, which is deep, low, rhythmic, somewhat troubled, but a driving force, is bringing the painting to life. And the words that came out of that experience for me are these. Birds black as coal, their throaty voices deep, pierce the air with horror cries and pleas. Their desperation finally released, delirious, their hope takes wing. The second poem that I would like to read came out of gazing at one painting. And if you have one of these books already, right with you, you can look at page 62, and I'll hold it up here, and you'll have a chance to see it more closely later on. This is the painting that I was gazing at, and there was so much going on. I could see that it was a place where there was energy, and it looked to me like a city. But my eye was drawn to the square that was glowing. So this is belonging. We are a city of sorrow and deferred dreams. Yet deep within our houses of loss, you will find windows of light opening to tomorrow. No one here travels alone. We are a people who know belonging, whose children are being guided toward high places where they will find their wings and fly as we let them go. Calling out to us, we will come back for you.
Perteneciendo. Somos una ciudad de lamentos y sueños diferidos, pero bien adentro de nuestras casas de pérdida encontrarás ventanas de luz, abriéndose al mañana. Nadie aquí viaja solo. Somos gente que saben de pertenencia, cuyos hijos son guiados hacia altos lugares, donde encontrarán sus alas y volarán, así como los dejamos ir, llamándonos. Regresaremos por ti.
And now Greta Bolger, who's a big part of the local poets group, and has gone to San Miguel de Allende with me, and just so happy to have her as part. Was my landlord. She used to own Maxwell's on Main, filled with things from Guatemala. Anyway, Greta Bulger. Yeah. You hook it over your ear from the back.
Oh, I get it. Okay. Well, I have to admit, this is a spot I never expected to occupy. Okay. Okay. Well, I shared a similar experience with the other writers in terms of spending time with Ellie's paintings and with David's music, and I have a long history of travel in Mexico and Guatemala, so this effort, this creative effort, is very near and dear to my heart because I love the people, I love the countries. So the first poem I'm going to read is called "To the Degree Which." To the degree which your song is caught in your throat, your wings are caught in the wires, your view of the sky is blocked by seal bars. The once startling colors of your feathers have dulled to dun-colored. To the degree which the fine bones that once held you upright allowed you to rise, loft above the darkness, fly under the searing sun without melting. To the degree which those bones have been fractured, shattered, the fine bones in your human hands, which long left their print on good work, are now without work, without touch, cradling your exhausted face, clenched into fists, pressed tightly into prayers floating up, blind balloons. To the degree which you are not free to go, not free to stay, to which hope slips down your throat, nearly choking you, how much you wish for choking. That is the degree to which you understand what is happening here and now and why. The real story behind this backstory. I chose that last line because some of Ellie's paintings use that word, backstory. So that was an important touch point for me. And the other poem is very short. In one of our first sessions, called Listen. Listen, don't try to count the birds. You'll miss the ones obscured by whiteness, flowers, each bird singular, alone, but their song is one sweet plea. And I can't wait to hear some of this read in Spanish. I love the Spanish language.
To the degree which. Al grado en que tu canción se atora en tu garganta, tus alas se atoran en los cables, tu vista del cielo está bloqueada por barras de metal, los colores de tus plumas que alguna vez fueron llamativos se han opacado y tornado pardos, al grado en que los huesos finos que alguna vez te sostuvieron erguido te permitieron levantarte, flotar sobre la oscuridad, volar bajo sol abrasador sin derretirte, al grado en que esos huesos se han fracturado, cuarteado, los huesos finos de tus manos humanas que hace mucho dejaron su huella de buen trabajo. Ahora, sin trabajo, no tienen tacto. Manteniendo tu cara exhausta, apretada en los puños, presionada fuertemente en oraciones que flotan hacia arriba, globos ciegos, al grado en que no eres libre para irte, no eres libre para quedarte, en el que la esperanza se ocurre por tu garganta. casi ahogándote, cuando quisieras ahogarte. Ese es el grado en que entiendes lo que está sucediendo aquí y ahora y por qué. La historia real de esa historia de fondo.
Thank you, Greta. Thank you, Marguerite. And now Camille Vetrano. Dear Camille is going to read 2 of her poems, and Marguerite will translate escuchando.
The first poem I'm going to read is a short, very short one, called Refugees. Who will speak for us, who endlessly long for home? Neither nest nor rest do we find in these branches, while our song goes on unheard. The other poem I'm going to read. Oh, you can't hear me. Okay. What?
Read the first one again.
Oh, really? Okay. All right. Refugees. Who will speak for us, who endlessly long for home? Neither nest nor rest do we find in these branches, while our song goes on unheard. This other poem was inspired by one of the abstract cityscapes on the outside of the exhibit. And it's the first time I wrote an acrostic poem based on something abstract. And that's the style in which it emerged. It turned out to be a sort of abstract poem. It's called Listening In. Iron gate, endless cages, unscalable wall, birds trapped in their forming, no communication, when will I see you again? Unfordable river, countless, countless beings. What lies below the surface? There's too much light, I can't sleep. Who may dream? Tears enough to swim my way out of here. I wait and wait and wait until I would lose my mind waiting. Unbreachable white wall, crying in cages. How did we come to this? Birds just fly free. Discordant notes of color, muddy, murky below the dark. Beyond comforting, too much noise, smell of terror, scarlet blood that no one even hears. Birds fly in and out, and to and from and over, an ache that lives beyond and through and around. Who may speak that some small forgiveness might begin to take root? Injury to the soul, cacophony of fear. Is this death? Will I die here? A sliver view of sky. Child asks, does anyone know I'm here? Will they still know me? Eternity. Time enough to forget. Create anew something that holds the potential for healing, for making whole again. Some hope.
Escuchando, verja de hierro jaulas sin fin, muro inescalable. Pájaros atrapados en su formación, sin comunicación. ¿Cuándo te volveré a ver? Río inasequible, incontables seres incontables. Lo que yace bajo la superficie. Hay demasiada luz, no puedo dormir. ¿Quién pudiera soñar? Lágrimas suficientes para nadar fuera de aquí. Yo espero y espero y espero y espero hasta que pierda mi mente esperando. Muro blanco, irrompible. Llorando en jaulas. ¿Cómo llegamos a esto? Los pájaros solo vuelan libres. Notas discordantes de color fangoso y turbio bajo la oscuridad, más allá del consuelo, demasiado ruido, olor a terror, sangre escarlata que nadie ni escucha. Los pájaros vuelan adentro y afuera y hacia y desde y sobre, un dolor que vive más allá y a través y alrededor. ¿Quién pudiera hablar que un pequeño perdón quizás comience a echar raíces, herida el alma, cacofonía de miedo? ¿Es esto la muerte? ¿Voy a morir aquí? Una vista plateada del cielo, el niño pregunta, ¿quién sabe que estoy aquí? ¿Aún me conocerán? Eternidad, tiempo suficiente para olvidar. Crear un algo nuevo que sostiene el potencial para sanar, para hacer completo de nuevo algo de esperanza.
So thank you, Camille and Marguerite and Greta and Sharon and Rue for what has just turned out to be a beautiful and unimagined, in the beginning of this project, an unimagined creation. So, and you've kept my heart alive through many hard times, just knowing that you're out there. And knowing that you're out there, and we've gone way over the time that we thought we were going to, but it was, I hope, worth your while to be here. I do want to offer you the opportunity to donate $75 or more for a copy of the exhibition catalog. 20% of whatever you donate to the book. I mean, the book costs $60 a copy to produce. And Carol and I, it was one of the hardest parts, was sort of tiptoeing through this process, knowing that every choice to make it on high quality paper, to make it full color, to have the Spanish as well as the English, to make it longer, all of these considerations. And I'm just like, oh, you know, you were here a couple of weeks ago, I talked about, I never bought things that weren't on sale. And to really just indulge the, to give the project the heft, the gravitas that I believe, I hope you'll agree, it deserves. 20% of whatever above the cost of the book, the $60, is going to go to Abba House in Celaya. Just to say, that I believe that we can be ambassadors, and that especially being here in Michigan and sort of the heart of the country, the fact, and Camille has made a pitch to CBS Sunday Morning, and making that point, that we can be this far from the border and have a conscience about what's going on down there and what's happening in another country. I really see the book as another, as an ambassador, that it will travel and other people will read these words, will read these poems, will see the art, will read the ideas that have been shared in the essays. And so I hope that if you do choose to purchase the book, that you'll share it with people and let people know about what you experienced here. Hopefully you'll go to the Denos Museum starting September 1st. The official reception is on the 25th of September, but the exhibit will be installing it next week. And you can go and experience it, because it's not the same as just looking at it. It's not even just the same as just hearing the words that have been spoken, although that is an amazing dimension. But it will be different than it was at the Oliver Arts Center, so even if you've seen it before, please go and experience it again. And I just invite you to, share this with your friends. I think this is a unique, no one's doing a project like this. I've looked around, I have my little ears, my antenna are up for all the possible, projects related to migration. People are doing some other wonderful work. Judy Jackson, who created the film that we showed about Abba House, just wonderful. She's gone to Mexico. There are other people doing a lot of work with video, but I don't know of anyone who is offering healing for human beings by inviting them to sit still and open their hearts and minds and souls to a greater possibility. If there's anything the world needs right now, I believe that is that greater possibility. So with no further ado, thank you for being here. Thank you, Dinah.
I just have two quick things.
And Dinah's got two quick things.
Thank you, Ellie. That was wonderful. And thank you, all of those who presented this evening. Thank you very much for doing that. I wanted you to bring your attention to two things. Firstly, this is a Mylar blanket. And it's what the people that are traveling use to stay warm. And it absolutely floored me because it's so thin. Actually, this is doubled. I mean, it's like, it's irony that it goes against the gravitas of the book. So I thought that was really, just make sure you go and feel it, because it's crazy.
It's what the government gave the children in detention.
Thanks. I knew I wasn't going to get it right. Yeah. So it's what the government gave the children. So it behooves you to come by and just like, whoa, that is not what I thought it was. And on something completely different level, there's a reception downstairs. So please come down and meet Ellie and all of our writers and readers. And thank you very much again for coming this evening. It's been a delight to have you. And thank you, Ellie, once again.
Thank you. So we actually have it set up. If you would like to make a purchase, just come up here, and we have books here, and Rue can help you with your purchase if you want to make one. Thank you very much. God bless you all.